Toyota has put their naturally aspirated V6 to rest, and in its place is a turbocharged 4-cylinder. It works surprisingly well, but they also offer it with a battery and a motor if you want more. So let's drive them both and see if you should save your money.
Brother, are you serious? Save your money? You better stay away from Toyo Turd then.
Yeah, you're right.
Listen here, Realistick dude. What?
If value is the highest priority, most of its competitors are a better fit.
Oh. Yeah.
I'll talk more about that on a different day. Right now, I just want to see if the hybrid is worth the $3,700 that it demands.
Well, can I still insult you?
Does it really matter how I answer that?
Nothing you say matters, toy boy.
We'll start off in the standard truck first. The 2.4-liter turbocharged inline-4 makes 278 ponies and feels really healthy in the mid-range. Even if it kind of sounds like a 13-year-old Chihuahua growling after it swallowed a whistle. Though if you spend more, the engine noise is less prevalent due to the addition of engine insulation. It's disappointing that no SR5 gets that treatment. There's a little bit of turbo lag, but for towing and passing, I'm pretty happy, and the 8-speed automatic makes good decisions. There's no waiting for it to make a choice, and it doesn't switch around a bunch when you're on the highway either. Takeoffs and shifts are usually pretty seamless with this, though some buyers have had some issues with the transmission that we'll talk about soon. When pushed, I found the 0 to 60 to come up in the mid 7-second range, with the automatic in last week's review. The biggest benefit to Toyota switching to this engine is that this doesn't need to rev as high to get the same amount of power. There's about 50 more pound-feet of torque to work with. This powertrain really loves to be in that 2,500 to 5,000 RPM range. And I think this would be entertaining with a manual transmission, so I'm glad they still offer that. It's largely the same unit that was in the previous gen, so it's not the most slick transmission with the best gearing, but it should provide more engagement to those that want it at the cost of 8 horsepower. No manual is available with the hybrid. If your needs are more commercial than personal, the base SR Automatic packs a detuned version of the 2.4-liter that still provides more punch than the old 2.7 for under 34 grand. Another smaller advantage to this over the last V6 is the gas mileage. When I had the cruise set a little above 70 miles per hour, I got 23 miles per gallon. And in most settings, I didn't have any problem hitting the EPA numbers. If you go with the hybrid, you will see a little improvement in the city, but efficiency wasn't the main priority with that one either, and neither was maximizing towing or hauling ratings. The payload capacities remain pretty similar across the powertrains, but the electrified truck actually tows about 400 to 500 pounds less and also weighs roughly 400 pounds more. Before we drive the hybrid, there are some important disclaimers to discuss. Like, that powertrain isn't available in the lower half of trims, meaning the starting price point is a hair below $50K. It's available on a few trims, and it's standard on the Trail Hunter and TRD Pro. The easiest way to identify an electrified model is through the iForce Max badging. And while no one's forcing anyone here, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. Thank you. I'd also like to give a nod to the friendly people at Royal South Toyota for letting me test drive 2 of the 4 Tacomas you'll see in today's video. Royal is knowledgeable and dedicated to the community. Check them out. In this market, Toyota dealers usually don't need to cut deals. But because the cheapest hybrid model comes out to a hair below 50 grand, and some of them can get near 60, moving them off the lot might take a little motivation, something we're also seeing with the regular Tacoma. Feature-wise, the differences between the standard model and the iForce Max are minimal. You lose the rear seat understorage, the TRD off-road hybrid gets slightly larger wheels, and there's a 2400 watt outlet in the back of the electrified model. Though, you can't get the Max with a 6-foot bed unless you go with the top dog Trail Hunter. and the limited hybrid gets full-time four-wheel drive, whereas the regular one doesn't. When I drove the Tundra Hybrid, I wasn't much of an advocate, not because it was bad, but because the regular twin-turbo V6 was already more than potent enough for the job. I didn't feel much of a difference, and neither did my testing equipment. When you're towing, it's not going to help out with your cruising RPM, and it only boosts your city mileage by a couple mpgs. The same principle on paper applies here. It tows about 500 pounds less and weighs about 400 pounds more. But after driving the TRD Pro with this powertrain for a week, I'm left with a positive impression. There's a 48 horsepower motor sandwiched between the same 8-speed automatic and 2.4 liter engine. There's also a wet clutch in there to engage the motor whenever it needs to help drive the truck or charge. The 8-speed still has its own torque converter. The difference with the Tacoma is that the turbocharged 4-cylinder benefits more from the immediate torque and response. We have 465 pound-feet here. Just giving it half throttle, you get a really nice surge of power because the Hybrid Max system is really filling in the gap of acceleration before you hit boost. This is also why it doesn't really help for towing outside of just getting the trailer up to speed. It can't just continuously take load off of the turbocharger because if it did, it would drain its small battery rather quickly. This is also not for maximum speed, because once you hit the high RPM, the advantage is much more subtle. So here are the flat-out results. While the hybrid did prove more punchy, from 0 to 60 and from 20 to 50, the difference there was roughly 10%. For regular everyday usage, removing that turbo lag makes it feel more relaxed than the numbers would suggest, though it better for a minimum of $50,000. At least the Tacoma in general checks most boxes for the target audience of lifestyle buyers who occasionally need it to do some work. For truck duties, 600 to 6,500 pounds of towing might not be stellar in this class, but it's enough for most campers, and for me personally, it's enough to tow a car and trailer, something that pushes a little past the 5,000 pound rating that you would get with something like a Ridgeline. Though, funny enough, the payload capacity with most Tacomas is about 1,500, which is the same or sometimes less than what you can get with the Honda. But with the Toyota, if you want to go off-road, no matter the powertrain, you can get a rear locker, you can get a disconnecting front sway bar. With the automatic or manual, you'll have some form of brake vectoring, which can stop spinning wheels and send torque to the wheel that needs it. And there's 9.5 inches of ground clearance. There's also that composite bed with versatile tie-down points. It handles like a rugged truck. There's slow steering, body roll is pronounced, but the steering is a little bit more direct than it was in the past. The new coil suspension that you'll find on most grades keeps it controlled in almost all scenarios. If you go with the TRD off-road, you'll have a softer Bilstein suspension, which in my opinion makes it feel a little bit less agile. And it takes abuse from a bad road well, even if you still get that kind of jittery truck feel on really any pavement that isn't photogenic. But this doesn't shudder like the old ones, and it takes larger potholes well. Highway cruising is a breeze too. Wind noise is muffled, tire noise is more pronounced, especially with something like the TRD Off-Road or Pro, but it's still far from a problem, and on a long drive, the seats are supportive, the driving position is a big improvement. Even at 6'3", I feel like I can stretch out and I can still reach the steering wheel, and the interior is almost exactly what I want from a mid-sized truck. While most trims are lathered with hard touch surfaces, there's padding for your elbows. There are also some varied textures, especially as you step up in trims, but with each one I enjoy the masculine, sharp design with big storage too, and you know I'm a fan of knobs, buttons, and switches. Even the tech is easy to use and comically large at times. The only real complaint I have is that the rear seats are tight, something that you'll find with almost every mid-sized truck. But these still seem even a little less family-friendly than average. If you want more in-depth thoughts about everything, including the common issues that people have encountered so far and predicted reliability, you can check out my full review. I do want to say that some serious complaints have been reported with the 8-speed auto, Since filming, Toyota has released a technical service bulletin to address the pressure control solenoid actuators that have been supposedly causing this issue. And this engine also uses a more tried and true design than you would expect and features direct and port fuel injection, so your intake valves stay nice and relatively shiny. Today's video was about finding out the difference between the standard and hybrid models, not just on paper, but in practice. Thankfully, I think the Tacoma iForce Max makes a stronger case for itself than its full-size Tundra sibling. The regular truck easily gets the job done and doesn't need boost all the time, but when you want more from it, it does feel like it requires more effort. Does that make the hybrid worth $3,700 more? Yeah, I think to a lot of people it would, but for me, I'm more on the fence. The big problem is that it takes an already exclusive price tag for a midsizer and makes it more expensive. If you have the mindset of, well, I'm already using up a lot of dough, I might as well make a pizza, then have at it. It makes a real difference. If you're the person that's still nauseous from when they first released the 4th gen prices, the regular engine is plenty for this application. Sure, it has a little bit of turbo lag, but with the responsive 8-speed, it's peppy, reasonably efficient, and there are no battery-related concerns in the long run. Thanks for watching, and thank you to my channel members for helping me improve video quality. Consider subscribing for additional content. I'll catch you in the next one.